Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of History After Hours. My name is Kevin Pumphrey, and with me, as usual, is Mr. Ron Franklin and Mr. Jeremy Nixon. The date is November 17th, 2020. In this episode, we are going to talk about postmodernism and some of the problems we have with this new wave that we've experienced over the last 10 years or so. We're also, of course, going to get into the election, the post-election craziness that is going on right now and make our predictions for the future. And then we end on a better note with a little bit about Thanksgiving. So hope you enjoy the podcast. All right, it is, what is this, Tuesday, November the 17th?
17th.
And 2020, we're still in the year of hell, but we're getting towards the end of it. And
you think the calendar may just end. We'll never leave 2020.
Yes, and I shook off the virus. I will give us an introduction so we don't have to go through that. But I missed last week of school and a couple days the week before that because I went through the coronavirus experience. And it's such a weird virus, and you guys know this already, but I could have sworn I didn't have it. It was just, I'm a little achy. I've got a mild cough, a couple days. I went ahead and got tested. Of course, I'm a teacher. I need to know if I'm running a fever consistently and I'm coughing, maybe I should go get tested. And then a few days later, they get back with me and say, "You're positive." And I just remember going, no, I couldn't be. And then I thought, I guess so. Where did I get it? I have no idea. But it's funny how I had such a mild experience with it. A little fatigue, that's pretty much it, and a little cough. And then there's people dying by the hundreds of thousands.
That's the bizarre nature of this ultimately, is that you don't know how if you get it, which I assume eventually we're all going to get it because they're not going to get the vaccine stuff to us before spring or early summer. What version of it do you get? How does your body react to it? Like I know statistically most people will have the same experience that you did if they get it. Mm-hmm. I felt bad for a couple of days. I shook it off. I'm good to go. Maybe I can't smell the same way I did before, or taste the same way I did before, or smell.
I did have that
smell that you say, yeah. So, but then you go, okay, then you see people who got it and they're on respirators, and and sometimes there's only one way off the respirator, and that's freaking scary.
And the progression of it for those people, like you've seen on the news or you've heard interviews, that the progression is so quick for some people that they go from feeling a little bad or sluggish to trouble breathing to the respirator quickly, and that sort of has been in the back of my head. But I've also been thinking sort of along the lines of it's when, not if, especially being back in school.
Right, yeah. Especially right next to me, knowing I just had it.
Yeah.
Do you think, having gone through it now, that if you were already under the mindset that this was overinflated as a crisis by politicians or whomever, can you see that maybe you would now go, yeah, it's not a big deal? Because I think that's what's happening with a lot of people, is that they either know somebody who's had it or they've had it and they caught a mild case of it and they're like, it's really not a big deal. It's just the flu. I didn't, because I've heard other people say that. So what's your take on that?
It's easy to say that when it is that way. But I also have a friend who got it and had the symptoms similar to me, but they said it's day 12 and I still can barely get out of bed because they're so fatigued. So that was their big issue, was energy is gone and they are having trouble getting out of bed. And the people that are having shortness of breath, it's just such a weird, I get early on, remember when it was started to, in February and then March, April, there was all those unknowns. We didn't know. And now we've got enough to go, yeah, most people are just going to have a little mild reaction. But what's interesting is the long-term studies that aren't there yet. We don't know. There are some people that have reported heart murmurs developing a few months after.
The blood clot thing?
Mm-hmm. Right. So, I could see us watching TV in 10 years and going, if you had the coronavirus in 2020 and you
Lord.
took this medication, please call us at your offices.
If you had this vaccine, now I don't want to promote that idea because these look like they're going through the proper channels and the right steps of scrutiny so that we can be more confident when they come. But at the same time, it's fast, and I know there are going to be people who go, I'm not taking that.
Well, what about, let's talk about
I kind of worry about that though.
Well, I mean, I think it's a legitimate concern because there's been so much doubts just strewn into that, because you've also got the core anti-vaxxers that are in the background, and and they're promoted all over social media, and they have their groups, and social media in itself gives a megaphone to that sort of message. And I think you're going to see it 10 times worse with this. And I don't think it matters if if they follow every precaution by the book, if they publish all their findings. I don't even think rationality is going to matter when it comes to it. I think you're going to have a huge set of the population that goes, nope, not taking it, and they can't make me.
Do you think that goes back to the thing you and I were having a conversation the other day about a postmodern mentality of not trusting science and not trusting rationality and going more with emotion? Like, that's a weird regression, but I think that's really happening a lot across, not just here in the United States, but I think that's a phenomenon. I don't know. I hesitate to say globally, but maybe.
I don't know. I would say globally.
Do you think that counts as a second epidemic then? The epidemic of disbelief in rational people and scientific achievement? And
I think it's in Western culture more than it is in Eastern culture. I think
Probably.
This postmodern, post-truth, questioning long-held beliefs and scientific beliefs in many times, of saying, no, that's not exactly how it is, and now you can get in trouble by challenging this postmodern stuff. And then of course the cancel culture comes in. So it's like, it's dangerous to go against some of the postmodern rhetoric, because then it could be your career.
It's almost like a weird reversion to superstition.
It is. And what's funny about that is when we were talking about it the other day, and I thought how, at least in pre-AP world, we had just come out of the dark ages and
faith.
Yes. And a resurgence of this idea that somehow science is the anti-religion. I don't even know what else to say. The parallels had me worried.
There's a pendulum that goes back and forth, I'm sure. We talk about it in American history, from the Enlightenment deist kind of moving away to the Second Great Awakening and transcendentalism and romanticism in art, and then moving back into the pragmatism of the late 1800s. It does seem to move side to side, and maybe we're experiencing some of that.
So the part, I don't know if you caught some of the conversation that he and I were having about the
I saw some of that.
Okay, we study that in art history specifically, and it is a reaction against of the control factors that were pinning in some of the creative elements that people wanted to explore. And so when we talk about postmodern in that class, it is about unleashing new ideas, but it's about creativity and who controls creativity and what is art, and being able to say it is art because I say it is. I don't care what your academy thinks or whatever. So I see where that can touch on this, but this may need to be labeled something more than postmodern philosophy. I don't know. Like, how would you label it if you had to label it?
Well, and that's what I've been struggling with, because we're literally about to talk about this in AP Comparative in the next couple of days, and I'm of the same thought you are. I'm having a hard time wanting to call it the same thing, because at some level that just doesn't feel like the same thing to me. And I know that that's just my own judgment of it. But the postmodern thing, and I've sort of gone back and read more about it in some political science articles after we talked about it, because I was just like, I don't remember this type of push, at least when I was studying it. And really, it is more of a push after I've seen varying articles about 70s, 80s, and then some say maybe even the 90s. But this idea of, we always talk about it as identity politics in the U.S., but because everything, comes down to a single issue these days with American politics, anti-vaxxer or not anti-vaxxer, or you're either this or that. There's no in between.
So maybe it's some sort of umbrella term that we could come up with.
Yeah, and that's what I'm thinking. At least my comparative book is using it as an umbrella term, but I don't feel comfortable with putting the regression in terms of science with that.
Okay, well, that's where I was going with that. Is
right.
that for again, when we think about mid 20th century, for the art history element of that, it's not about. It is about breaking away from accepted norms, but it is to enhance, not to regress. It's it's to make progress in creative, acceptance. But this is when we're talking about anti-vaxxers and whatever. That's very
flat earthers.
Yeah, that's very conspiratorial, and so that's I think that's where it's different, right?
Well, and also on the social end of this postmodern movement, a lot of this I think comes from after the baby boomers. Was that Gen Xers?
Right, yeah.
Is there anything
that's right,
to it?
yeah.
Okay, so the older Gen Xers that went to college in the 60s and 70s, because a lot of this comes from academia, questioning those long-held scientific, because the big scientific push in the early 20th century and the nuclear bombs and all that stuff, some of that comes from that, and socially, there's seeds of truth in it. So a lot of this comes from attacking certain things. I can't think of an example. Well, I know Jordan Peterson is a guy from Canada who got popular talking about this postmodern thing when Canada started to try to pass laws for gender pronouns, make compulsory speech. That's the thing I thought of, because that's when I first heard that term postmodernism, because there was a big push to get people. So there's good elements of it. There's some truth to certain things, but it's not the full truth. It's kind of like also the 1619 project that's been pushed out from, there's elements of truth to it. So it's kind of this revising American history through the lens that everything really comes through the lens of slavery. And that's kind of a postmodernist thing, because there's seeds of truth to some of that, but it's not the total picture.
I don't think it means to be the total picture. Just to defend that for a second, the 1619 project, I think it's more of a conversive element than anything else. Like let's throw this out here because it hasn't really been talked about. I don't know, and if there are people who are taking that as it's absolute truth and blah, like I don't know anybody I've heard who is part of the project itself, because I looked into it when it was first brought up. Mm-hmm. It's more about having a more well-rounded conversation generally than saying we're going to rewrite American history altogether. I think it's about plugging things in that have been left out.
Yeah, and maybe that's the original intent.
But I agree that there are people who are taking it in a different...
And now they're trying to put it in curriculum, and they're trying to say... And they've got some sketchy history in there that's based on very little evidence.
Well, and then you have the reactionary commission that Trump...
Right. 1796, is that what or 1776?
1776,
yeah.
Oh, yeah. See, and then
why would I say 96? That's weird.
Right. So, I think it is... I don't know. We're living such a weird moment, and I think the weird moment is because of the dang social media and the internet.
Post-truth.
It takes
we've said that term before.
Right. Yes. It makes it so much harder to figure out. It's not just coming from academia or political circles. This is coming from everybody.
But it's also about people with agendas who are saying you can't trust anybody but me.
Correct.
And everybody else is, I hate to borrow the term, but everything else is fake news.
Oh yeah.
Everything else is deep state.
Yeah, teaching the election aftermath this year has been horrible, because the amount of kids that come up to me with just inaccurate, wrong statements about...
It's like that OAN thing you sent me last night.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
It's so binary, right? I mean, we're tribal. We're getting into our teams.
Yes.
And then you have to agree with everything down the line. I remember saying this 5 or 6 years ago. I remember saying, it's sad if I know your stance on gun control, I can basically guess every other thing. Well, that has just gotten worse.
Yes.
Now it's either you love Trump or you hate him, pro or con. It's so binary.
This old clip thing that he sent out last night when we were looking at it was it had been published yesterday morning, as a matter of fact, and it was commentary on it. Showed the political map, the electoral map, and it was still had not given Arizona, Nevada, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, or Michigan to Biden. None of those had been given. They're and here's the map the way we see it. She emphasized that, the little commentator person,
Alternative map.
and here is here is our we still see a path to Trump's victory, she said, which is just a complete denial of the absolute truth. And so, who is that? Was that Kellyanne Conway that came up with the alternative facts thing, or was that somebody else?
Kellyanne was the first. We have alternative facts, and which is not a thing, but they've taken it to
right.
They've taken it to levels that I really never thought I would see in America or in American politics, because that's a news, quote unquote, news channel.
But there are intelligent people who will go, well, I see, and they're going to believe that over real journalism. I saw an interview with Sam Donaldson last night where he was like talking about
Sam Donaldson?
Yeah, he's still around.
Old
school journalism versus what we're seeing now. And so his interview reminded me of a thing I saw just a few weeks ago, where they were talking about journalistic integrity and all that stuff. And, the fact that the three networks before all of this age of cable news and all that, and social media for sure, like they sort of double checked on each other. And if they got it wrong, they come back and go, we got that wrong. And they tried to be as forward as they could with here it is without opinion. It's just right. Here's what we know right now. And so they had, but it was very specific on who could be a journalist. There are schools that, here's how we do it. Here are the rules, and here's the rules of engagement, so to speak. But now, whoever this was I was listening to made the commentary that everybody can be a journalist. Right. Everybody is the media in the age of social media, and that doesn't make it quality or make them qualified.
Yeah, well, I mean, I teach that in AP Gov because most of the talking heads, anybody after I say 4 or 5 p.m. on the news networks, Fox, CNN, MSNBC, they're actually not journalists. They're not trained in journalism. If you go back and look at their careers and you look at their education, they are not trained in journalists. Some of them dropped out of college. Some of them have different degrees. Some of them are lawyers. Most of them are not journalistically trained. And then, like you said, with social media, citizen journalism, where that gets us in trouble is we see edited clips, we see part of the story, and then it's accepted as true. And it's not a 24-hour news cycle anymore. It's a 24-hour tweet cycle. It's whatever tweet gets out first.
And it's turned into a form of entertainment.
Yeah, it is.
And
it's not informative, it's entertaining, and that's, I think, dangerous.
So the next level is then, okay, so we've got to figure out a way to filter some of this crazy lies and whatever. We got to filter that. But then the next question is, who is responsible for filtering that?
Who's the filter?
Now, I have friends who posted a lot of stuff around election, right after election, and it got tagged as fake. And I've got a lot of friends that are what we might call some good old boys from the, you can kind of guess what they might be tweeting and what they're posting. And what's even more funny to me is their reaction to the flag that it's false. So Facebook will tag it as false information, but then their comments are like, oh yeah, Facebook, of course we're going to trust them. They're making fun of the fact and basically saying, no, what I put is true. And Facebook, those bunch of liberals don't know what they're talking about.
How dare you fact check me?
And let me ask you this question. So should Facebook can do whatever they want, but is there a regulatory system that should be applied? And we've talked about this. I don't have an answer. Does anybody have should the government step in and start regulating?
As soon as they do, people will switch to a no platform.
Right. And then it's the government doing it. And I don't like that either.
Well, and that's what's problematic. When the government steps in, you automatically trigger First Amendment concerns, whereas because of they're not the speaker, Twitter itself or Facebook, they haven't been entangled in those concerns.
That's where it gets tricky then with the commentary on the Hill today with them bringing in Facebook and Twitter CEOs saying, hey, are you commenting on these comments, and if you are regulating that, then doesn't that make you a publisher and therefore subjected to different ruls?
Were y'all surprised that they started doing that? It seemed to me it just started happening out of the blue that they started to tag things as fake or false information.
The closer we got to the election, the more it happened. Yeah,
I was just surprised that what changed. I guess it was Facebook is where I noticed it first, but of course it happened on Twitter as well, even to the president.
On Twitter.
Yeah, it happened on Twitter, Facebook, I think, first. Well, there was such a groundswell of public disapproval of social media platforms, at least from the left perspective about not doing enough and saying that they had a essentially corporate duty to act. Look, I don't know if you buy into that or not, but it's not like corporations are looking out for the best interest of people or have ever. Right. But they responded to sort of public outcry, and what that did is it deepened that divide that we talk so much about, because then you have people picking sides. Like you said, they just go to a different platform. So, they can get it wherever they want to get it. It's the echo chamber. You find yours and you live in it.
But back to the original point, though, I just don't, this complete rejection of truth with some people that we're seeing, and I don't know where that comes from, if they've just been trained now to believe in misinformation so much that they just don't trust anything, and then maybe that's that postmodern thing that we were referencing a while ago. I don't know who to trust, therefore I don't trust anybody. Where does it go from here? You have to have, don't we, as a functioning society, have to have some semblance of truth? Therefore, that builds a sense of unity as a nation. And if we don't have that, what do we have?
We have to have an educated citizenry to make a democracy work. That's the things. We have to have a core group that knows what's going on. And right now, it's getting so muddied that it could get to the point. I mean, this, I think, is what breaks up countries. Mm-hmm. There is no truth. I mean, that's the first step to Putin taking over Russia again, and them moving away from a republic back into a dictatorship is muddying the truth, then eventually taking over.
But you have people in power positions who could help with that situation and don't. And matter of fact, they're aggravating the situation.
Well, let's talk about that. Let me ask you this just blanket question, and we'll see where it goes, because I think it'll be tying into what you just said there. Has anything surprised you about the election and post-election? We talked about a lot going into this. We knew some things would happen. Is there anything that has surprised you that you thought, wow, I can't believe they just said that kind of thing? I don't think it will be Trump. I think we all knew going in that Trump would react and behave the way he has. My, I guess, thing was some of the other people around Trump basically, I don't know what it's like. It's like treating him like a kid. And I know that they're going to say later that they were worried about Senate seats and they're, they don't want to.
Yeah, but when only 4 or 5 Republicans have come out now and said, look, and senators and Congress people and a few governors, including ours, which surprised me tremendously, that Governor Hutchinson would come out and go, yeah, President-elect Biden, blah, 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 blah.
He's term limited.
Oh, but the brand isn't.
Right.
And so that's interesting. But anyway, maybe they feel they've got a lock on it. He feels confident enough to be able to say that. But again, half-ish of the senators are Republicans, right? And only 4 or 5 of the 50 around that many have come out and said, yeah, it's not either they have blatantly gone and said repeated the lies and pushed the narrative that there's still a path, or they've just been silent, which makes them, complicit.
Well, I think you said this the other day, the idea that what's the harm in letting him stew or play out his
give him some time.
Yes,
he'll
give him some
down.
time, but there is actual harm in that. So, I think that's one of the surprising things that's come out of it for me, because there is harm to that.
Like, he needs to process that, but other people could help him along with his grieving, whatever he's going through, right? Whatever the steps are, whatever step he's on, like they could say, look, here's the reality. Here are your options, but here's the reality. And I don't know if people in his inner circle have actually done that. Matter of fact, I think they've made it worse. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. Well, I said before the election that if it was a tight race and Biden won, that I was counting on the institutions of government to hold it. But part of that is your elected representatives and your people who are in the government respect the institutions enough to step up and say what they need to say. So the institutions can only do so much. And so that part has surprised me.
But don't you see that some of the behavior, though, is like just mocking the system itself?
Oh, yeah,
and
absolutely.
All that does is drag it
down further into the gutter. Yeah, all they're doing is eroding legitimacy, which is entirely the wrong thing to do. And it's ultimately dangerous. The other thing that has genuinely surprised me... If
you're part of the institution and the institution falls,
yes.
What the hell are you thinking?
Yeah.
Because you're going down with it.
Sure. I don't think they... I honestly think they're like, okay, well, he's going to be around. He's going to be the face of the GOP, even though he's lost, and we're trying to placate him.
How true do you think that is?
I don't know. And so here's what I've heard about that. And of course, I'm speculating now, just like everybody else, but there have apparently been internal moves within the GOP to have Don Jr. and Kimberly Guilfoyle, I think I'm pronouncing her name sort of correctly.
You're talking about the best is yet to come.
Yes,
that lady?
That they're going to move to be like co-chairs of the GOP. And if that is true, then the GOP they have a problem.
Abandon all hope, ye who enter here.
Well, yeah, and then so, there's also the theory that Trump's going to run again, which I completely think he will.
See, I don't buy that necessarily.
I think he's going. I had this, and I talked to Nixon about this because it just kind of hit me because I hadn't heard anybody say it yet, and I'm sure people have said it a bunch, but I haven't been keeping up as well. But I think Trump's going to announce on January 20th at noon on TV and do his best to upstage the inauguration of Biden. I mean, that is so Trump.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
I just part of me
he'll
thinks that he's
declare.
gone through the process now, and he's still going to cling on to whatever, he's going to try to spin it in his direction as best he can. But it seems like there are other avenues for him to explore and still be just as popular and get just as much as attention and go be your network personality. Go own your own.
I think he's going to do that too.
Right?
I think he'll do both, yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Well,
you think he'll do both?
For
Yes.
the next 4
Oh.
years, he will be at the
I
head
do
of his
too.
media.
I think he'll do
And
both.
use that as an outlet for his next run
The
at the
mind-blowing
presidency.
fact that he got the most votes of any
Republican.
president ever. And of course, Biden got more than that, but over 70 million people voted for Trump. That is
72?
a huge chunk of
Yeah,
votes.
it is. I mean, and that's
It's not, that is the GOP.
you can't
and that is
ignore it.
Trump.
You're right. You can't ignore that. And the GOP had a really good night
Yeah.
across the board.
Yeah.
They gained seats in the House.
Yeah.
They're probably going to hold the Senate. We'll see what happens in Georgia. But
Which really helps to break apart his whole conspiracy thing, right?
yes,
Right. The Democrats were so much in control of this machine that is the voting process, and yet you're the only one that lost.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Democrats have to be the worst people rigging an election ever to lose seats and not retake the.
You're not good riggers.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this tough question. As history teachers, we all obviously always take minority positions and try to argue from. If you have students that just can't stand anything about Trump, they cannot articulate how in the world that many people, how he carried, how it was so close, all that stuff. What do you say to those students? I mean, I have a pitch that I give, but what do you account for Trump doing so well in the presidential election? I mean, I understand, once again, it's either hate or love, but what is the pitch that, look, it's hard for me to say because I think so many people voted for Trump because they're scared of the socialism and progressive left.
I think that's a big part of it. I would hinge on that more than anything else because Biden's a moderate. And
I think the main reason people voted for Biden was because it's not Trump.
Yes.
But
I've heard people say that Harris
is.
is she's so this and that. She's going to take it. And she's an extreme leftist. I don't buy that argument either.
No,
I've
I
not
don't
seen
either.
anything from her that indicates that. But I think that they did a good job of labeling them, just Democrats in general, as like you said, the identity politics and all the things that sort of brought him into power the first time. I think they doubled down on those things, and it still resonates with a lot of people. I think that there's still that fear, and the word socialism is still, and the far left who embraces that fully now. I think they scare a lot of people.
Well, and I think part of the problem is people don't understand, there's a difference between moving toward social democracy and socialism.
No, I know that. Yes,
And-
right.
Right. So we have an uneducated public, like you were talking about, Kevin. But the other thing that I tell my students when you're asking about how Trump got so close, even again, is that he's checking off boxes because you have upper middle class or just middle class Republicans that look at the economy and say, yeah, I don't like what he tweets. I don't like what he says. He's not my favorite person, but I like his fiscal policies or his economic policies. And so I'm going to hold my nose and vote for him because for me, from their perspective, it was status quo plus. Like, it didn't harm them. It only got better for them. And so they're going to vote personal interest. And then you take that and you take identity politics and you take the boxes and he just checks them off.
How many
one
of the
by one.
voters that Biden got were reacting to the president's handling of the COVID crisis?
Oh, yeah. I don't know those numbers.
If that had not been an element
I think Trump would have won.
Trump wins. And
Yes.
I say the same thing in a way, if you are a religious person and you want to overturn Roe v. Wade, Biden or Trump? Oh, well, let's go with Trump because he's already appointed conservative. Same thing with tax cuts. Same thing with immigration. You want open borders or you want to build a wall? You got to pick one. Well, let's build a wall, by God, because we don't need open borders. Right. So, and I can understand that approach to voting if that's you have one.
Yeah, I think people don't understand the difference between America first and America only, which is really what his policy's been.
Yes.
Like it's only us. We're all that matters. Well, guess what? We do have to interact with the globe, and so there's a difference between focusing on American business and well-being and infrastructural aspects and whatever it is, and getting us out of the endless wars, all that kind of jazz. But if you isolate us, like we're not an island, you know what I mean? But I think that's been for a lot of people that may have voted for Biden. That I think that they were tired of that too.
Mm-hmm. The party system is failing us because the party system is supposed to educate and inform the voters and link us to the political process. But what they've done instead is they've made it completely binary. It's either this or that, and there's no middle ground anymore. Like if you look at Biden, just take abortion. You say, oh well, he's pro-choice, I'm pro-life. Well, actually, he's Catholic and personally against abortion, but he doesn't think government should have a say in making that decision, and that's a nuanced.
Which
argument.
Is what Republicans believe about guns.
Right. So, I mean, but we've taken all of that out of it. Parties don't do what they're supposed to do. We as citizens don't inform ourselves and do what we're supposed to do. And you see a systemic breakdown of democracy.
Yeah. Well, what do y'all think about Trump's one, I think, glaring anti-Republican stance, which is the demilitarization of certain countries? I mean, traditionally, the Republican Party has been pro-military, I would say, more money for the military. And he even pumped that up in his inauguration.
But, okay, so he hasn't cut back on military spending, just on where we happen to be placing the military.
Okay.
So that's something that we need to...
So as long as he's spending the money for the military...
We're still spending money, and we're still making huge deals to get to sell weaponry to countries that he's cozied up to. Mm-hmm. And so, I think that it may be just a plan to redistribute those soldiers into other locations. That may be what we're seeing partially, and especially with this new story that came out yesterday with him questioning who's the defense guy that just got fired. What was his name? I'm sorry.
Esper.
So, yeah, sorry. One of the things that may have caused his downfall was that Trump had asked him about, can we bomb Iran? Mm-hmm. And he was like, yeah, that's not really going to be a thing. And so now suddenly we're back to troop withdrawals from Syria and Afghanistan, but we're pumping up stuff into the area in different parts of the area. You know,
are there numbers on military voting in the presidential election? Have y'all seen any? Did it split for Trump?
I heard it went 60-40 for Biden.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Yeah, which I didn't really expect.
I didn't either.
It also depends on where the troops are from, you know.
Yeah, there's different socialization behind that, but the last number I saw, that was a while ago.
But military contractors ought to still be happy with the way that he's done this. So I don't know that it's necessarily against what the Republican platform's generally been, which is about let's pump money into the military and cut spending in social. Right, let's restrict that kind of spending and put more towards militarism and research and development, and then be able to sell that stuff to other countries. Keep the best for yourself, but let's sell them a lot of stuff too.
To me, that's been a fascinating thing in Trump's rhetoric is what he says about military and moving the embassy in Jerusalem. The whole just his foreign policy, because he has no experience. I've said a million times if he does something right, it's by accident. So it's just fun to watch him talk about these things. And sometimes the Republicans are like, yeah. And then sometimes they're like, yikes.
Well, that's
it's been scary too. I mean, North Korea, you go down the line, we thought we were going to get nuked there for a minute, and then we didn't. And now they're best friends.
Well, you check a box there too with the Israel thing, since you brought that up. The thing with the I don't want to call it a peace deal between at least the appearance of a peace deal between them and the UAE. And who was the other one? There were two countries recently. What was the other one?
Oh, crap.
Most recently was United Arab Emirates, but it was another country in the area that had said they've because for a while it was just Egypt that accepted Israel's right to exist. Okay, this is I'm sorry, but the UAE and another country. Hopefully, we can find that pretty quickly. But what that then did was open up more arms sales to those countries from us to them. Now that they agreed to not be aggressive towards Israel, which isn't, I guess they could go against that agreement if they wanted to, but for the time being, it cleared the path for massive sales of arms to those countries. And so it's not really a peace deal, is it?
Right.
When you're amping up more ammunition into the region that's already volatile. Could you find
Egypt and Jordan?
Was it Jordan? Jordan. I thought Jordan was already on the list.
Maybe.
Okay, anyway,
I'm still looking.
Okay, sorry.
He needs a Nobel Prize, though. That's what he was.
Peace.
I don't. Once again, I'm wondering if good will come out of this. Once again, I don't want to shake our
Neville
institutions.
Chamberlain. I've achieved peace in our time.
I don't want to shake our institutions to the ground, but questioning institutions, having Americans not blind, with the Patriot Act and everything that happened under W into Obama and the spying and then the whistleblowers and Snowden and you go down the list, we had this kind of what is going on, and then Trump just called it out for what he saw it was. Now he's just trying to get elected, but I don't know. I'm hopeful that reforms are made and the institutions are made stronger, but they're pure. But I don't
Sudan.
know. I'm trying to be optimist, though.
Was it Sudan? Maybe.
That's what I'm finding. That's the only other one I'm finding right now.
So does he try? Why is he pushing for this de-escalation by January, whatever?
Promises made, promises kept.
Yeah, which is another reason why I think he's going to run again.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the real reason I think he's going to run again, not to circle back.
Well, it makes him money.
Yes, because it's a slush fund for his businesses, because all of the events are held at Trump properties, and so he can fundraise immediately as soon as he declares, and then that money is pumped back into the Trump organization, paid to not only his children but his properties, because they're all on the take as consultants while also working in the White House. Ivanka, that would be you.
Is he going to jail after he leaves?
And
because that could change things.
And being a a convicted felon would preempt his ability to run again.
No.
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 Interesting.
The only constitutional requirements are the age, residency, and natural born. So he can be a felon and run. The only way he could not run again is if the Senate would have impeached, or if the House would have impeached, the Senate removed, and as part of the Senate removal, forbidden him from running again. That's the only constitutional mechanism.
So he could be. Well, we have had presidents run from jail and receive votes.
True.
So I mean, it is possible. Eugene V. Debs was in prison, I think, in like 19.
I did not. Okay, 20. I didn't know that story.
So it has happened before. There's precedent for a candidate to be in prison.
Yeah, he can. He can.
But that is a good.
Could you be elected while serving a prison sentence? Then what? Oh man.
I don't know.
All right. What happens? Okay, it's January 19th. Trump sees the writing on the wall. The New York court they're coming down. It looks like he's going under, and his last act is to pardon himself.
You can't pre-pardon yourself, can you?
Well, he can't pardon himself.
I give myself an indulgence.
That's the only restriction on the pardon power. He can't pardon himself.
Now, I just heard you say Trump can't, but Trump's done a lot of stuff we didn't think he could do.
Well, it's with regarding to. Well, maybe. Now that I'm thinking about it, because it's talking about regarding to impeachment. Oh, God.
I've just heard people say he could possibly try. But I don't know the legal...
The thing... God help us.
Can a president pardon himself? Look, if there ever is going to be one that tries, it's going to be
right.
Trump.
I'm going to go with no. That's my gut reaction on that one.
You can't even revert back to the institutions will save us.
Yeah, no, I'm gone. Like this, yeah. What I was gonna say might be smarter would be resign and have Pence do it.
Tag, you're it. Hurry.
Yeah, the 19th I resigned.
Can you pardon somebody from a state
No,
accusation,
state,
though?
no, it would be federal only. So New York can still go after him on the state crimes. But, he may need to pardon Lindsey Graham going out the door, too.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah. What is that? I saw the blurb about Graham. Do we know?
The Secretary of State in Georgia, and I can't think of his name right off the top of my head, just like I couldn't think of Sudan, has admitted, or, well, I shouldn't say admitted. He's indicated that Graham strongly indicated to him through wink, wink, nod, nod inferences that he should find ways to throw out legal ballots to help pitch the election in Georgia for Trump.
I thought they were for legal ballots, though. Isn't that what they've been preaching? If I hear the words, I'm glad Trump is doing this, we need to kick the tires. If I hear the words kick the tires, I don't know if y'all have heard that expression, but I'm okay with Trump kicking the tires to see if the electoral process is, and I'm just like, really? I mean, I get that in close elections and in a state or so, there's usually a challenge or something in recounts.
I don't mind the legal challenges. Matter of fact, I think that that's a good thing, but I don't think that it's going to be helpful in the end because people are just not going to accept the reality. The people who already believe that he was cheated are still going to believe that he was cheated, even though the election officials in Republican-led states are still going to say, well, there's nothing wrong here. We checked it. Look, and they'll say, no, you're lying. You're a rhino, Republican in name only. You're part of the problem. And right, but I think that's the reality of the situation.
I think we could talk about Trump saying everything's rigged, which there's a compilation of him saying that's rigged, that's rigged. I mean, it goes down the list. And we could talk about him defunding some of the U.S. Postal Service before the election to cause mail-in ballots to be late, which some I'm sure were. But I think one of the most destructive things he did was on election night declare victory.
Yes.
That to me was a bar lowered. So, I mean, to say that you won when you clearly haven't won yet, no one, I mean, there's no information that he won and he just declares victory. They're trying to steal it from him. He said it twice and within 3 minutes that he declared victory. I mean, that is that's going against the whole process and just a big finger to the whole system. And I just thought that was so destructive and such maybe one of the low points of his presidency, if there is such a thing.
Yeah,
I mean we've got plenty to.
It was horrible, and it destroys the legitimacy not only of President-elect Biden, but it destroys his own legitimacy of as a president, because I think the more he does, the more he will be viewed historically as one of the worst presidents of the United States.
Yeah, I'm trying to think already about his legacy and how he will be ranked. And, I talk about Johnson and Buchanan, some of the worst presidents. Both of those presidents was based on racism and slavery. And so it's hard to where Trump would be because of, obviously if our whole country goes under within the next 4 years because of what happened, then that would be an easier thing. It really depends on what you think constitutes a bad president. So I guess it's going to be 20 years before
70 million people, more than 70 million people don't see a problem with his presidency. Obviously there's some sort of cognitive dissonance going on.
Yeah, Buchanan was a one-termer who I think I rank him probably at the bottom. And then Johnson, who took over for Lincoln, wasn't elected. But Trump would have, but I think he would have got reelected were it not for the virus. It's
I think he would have too.
Thing.
Well, I'm looking at the little diagram again. He's the only president in history that meets all three of these: impeached or resigned, lost the popular vote, and served one term. So historically, when you put that into perspective, I mean,
it's the media though. They're the ones who caused it. He wouldn't have been impeached because it was a Russia hox.
I'm the only one.
They were against him from the very beginning. That's why he lost the popular vote.
But that makes him special and unique, though, right?
All right, so I guess we could finish up with the prediction here. Biden, assuming everything keeps rolling, Biden becomes president on January 20th. Does he get anything done in 4 years? Or do the Republicans, since the Republicans control the Senate, It seems, right? They still control the Senate, or are we still waiting on Georgia?
We'll have to wait on Georgia. If Georgia, look, it's a long shot. Georgia would have to give both Senate seats to Democrats. It would be a 50-50 tie, and Kamala Harris would break the tie to put the Democrats in charge.
Do you think that, let's use McConnell, do you think that Mitch McConnell would treat Joe Biden the same way he treated the previous administration that Biden served in?
Yes. And, that what worries me is Biden has always said, well, I've worked with these people. I've known them forever. I can return I don't even know what to call it anymore. Bipartisanship is what he says. I don't think he can. And I think it's, Mitch McConnell has done more disservice to the institutions and norms of American politics than just about any other politician that hasn't been president. So, no, I don't think Mitch McConnell is going to revert magically to the days of bipartisanship. I think he'll treat him exactly like he treated Barack Obama, and that it's going to be
executive order order to get anything done.
Biden's already said, he's already listed on the first day, these are the executive orders of Trump that I'm repealing, most of which repealed executive orders from Obama.
Yeah. Any interesting cabinet picks, predictions, or, are we going to see some familiar faces from Biden?
I'm leaning against the idea. I don't think that he'll pick any of the farther left people. I just don't see that because he's tried to distance himself from a lot of the planks they were trying to cog into the platform.
Green New Deal, like AOC.
Yes. I don't see that at all.
Well, he can't afford to lose them in the Senate either. He's got to be careful with who he selects.
Isn't it funny where we could have the Republican Party splitting and the Democratic Party splitting all at the same time over all of this?
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, the Democrats are already showing their internal chaos. That the moderates are blaming the far left for losing the swing seats in Congress. They're going to hold a bare majority, or in the House. They're going to hold a bare majority in the House. It looks like they're going to lose the Senate, although there is a chance that they could get power. But if they do have power, it's going to be a bare majority. And you've already got people like Joe Manchin in West Virginia, very centrist, saying, I'm not going to end the filibuster. I'm not going to pack the court. If the left of my party wants to do this, I'm not on board. Well, that's all it takes.
Yeah.
In a 50-50 Senate. So, if Biden governs, it's going to have to be from the middle, and he can't do that by appointing far left.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I just don't think that he can. I don't think he can embrace that.
I don't think he has the political capital to spend to do it. So I think you're going to see centrists. I think Stacey Abrams. We talked about that the other day. I think you might see like a Jason Kander out of Missouri get a spot.
What about Susan Rice?
Maybe. I've had my doubts about her because she was so embroiled in controversy with national security and Obama. Not that it was any valid or really valid criticism, but her name was synonymous with national security for Biden. So I don't know, or for Obama. I think Buttigieg will probably end up with something, maybe an Andrew Yang, but because he tends to appeal to that more populist, even though he's far left or more left, I should say, not far.
Any Republicans?
I said this the other day. I think it would be hilarious if he tried to elevate Susan Collins out of Maine into something and then throw that race to a Democrat. She wouldn't do it, but I would love to see him try just to play some politics.
Yeah, I was thinking about people like Romney or Kasich. Romney, but maybe Kasich, somebody who's been against Trump from the beginning as a way to swing some more votes your way.
Yeah, historically, there's been a cabinet position of the opposing party. We kind of ditched that tradition. I'm not sure exactly who it was that ditched it, but
I'd have to look.
Need to look, but yeah.
What happened to Tom Steyer? Remember those commercials?
Yeah.
I talked about
for a while. He was on TV like every moment of every day there for a while, and then he just floated away. I don't know.
I talked about the Democratic candidate for president, the Scream. What was that guy's name?
Howard Dean.
I talked that to my kids, and they all looked it up immediately.
I play it. Yeah, my government kids too, and I played it in government.
The moment his candidacy
Isn't that
died,
insane that
imploded.
Scream ruined his entire campaign? Yet we just got rid of a president who did 1 million things worse than that.
That would have ruined anybody.
And it didn't affect him. I mean, Reagan is no longer the Teflon president. Reagan's not even in the ballpark of what Trump has accomplished. I mean, he grabbed that title, Teflon president.
I mean, Clinton's Slick Willie title too. You know he was so slippery nobody could get him. Like that's
he grabbed that title too.
That away too.
Trump is great at grabbing stuff. I'm telling you,
just the best. My kids think that the Slick Willie. They didn't know that. They're so young. That my AP government kids.
Yeah.
I told them that, and they were like,
"That's the one." You know, look, I regret that we didn't have the first woman president. You know, with Hillary, just because I think that's important, and that would have been a good moment. But more, I regret that we didn't have Bill Clinton back in the office with nothing to do. Hey, everybody, I'm back. That would be.
Do you need that guy with time on his hands?
Oh
really?
no. Who knows what would have happened?
I'm first husband.
Although just for the SNL, I would have enjoyed it. That's like Fox had Sarah Palin on the other night, and I'm like, ooh, is Tina Fey gonna come back? Come back? Woo! Like, yay! Come on, bring her back.
Well, let's end on a couple minutes of Thanksgiving. It's coming up. We always enjoy the break. We're having 2 virtual days from school, so really we get a little bit more time away from students. But y'all Skyping for Thanksgiving this year? What are we doing?
We have a small clutch of people that we're not having. I mean, we've canceled big Thanksgiving just because there are lots of people in my family who have pre-existing conditions that would be, they're susceptible. Mm-hmm. And so we've got to be very careful. And so it's not out of like, well, the government told you can't have Thanksgiving. That's not what I'm talking about. Right. I get why people would be angry if the government stepped in and said you can't celebrate with your family. However, we are very conscious of the health conditions within the family. And we're just like, look, we'll see y'all later. I mean, we'll call you, but we really just need to be, we're just taking that precaution, and it's not out of any kind of sense of loyalty to any political party that we're doing that. I just, health consciousness is going to reign over
for me.
us,
I just got over this, and I'm no longer contagious and hadn't been for several days. But the last day I could have been contagious swings over for my immediate family for another 10 days, which lands right before Thanksgiving. So it's like, do we want to gamble?
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, we're just going to be safe because, the people that I see at Thanksgiving, I'd like to see at Christmas.
Right, yeah, I agree.
Yes.
That's the way I feel about it. So let's hedge our bets here.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing immediate family only, so it's not extended family this year, which is a bummer, but we're doing it for the same reasons. It was my dad's birthday his birthday was Monday, but I went out over the weekend to see him. I hadn't been out to their house in literally months because they're high risk. And so, I mean, I was out there wearing a mask, giving him his birthday present, that sort of thing. So it's not because we're like you. It's because of the health concerns.
And do y'all have, in your family, do you have any political, like in a typical year Thanksgiving, are there any political blow-ups in the family? Or are y'all just kind of, let's not talk about that?
We've learned just to not talk to each other about it.
Because my family, we have a little of both. I'm probably more liberal than the rest of my family. And, we have some not heated, because we're all love each other and we get along, which is, and that is an art to be able to disagree and it not really matter. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. We're a very politically blended family. And so we just like, look, it's, you feel how you feel about it and we feel how we feel about it. And it's better just to, be together and not concentrate on those things.
This is what it used to be. You didn't talk about politics or sex. You just didn't talk about it. And I remember those days.
Or political sex.
Hey, yeah. But Clinton ruined it.
Clinton. No, my mom at holidays has a no politics rule.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, hey, she's a smart woman. Yeah.
They can't win against you. You just lawyer them.
I know.
That's submission. What about any traditional foods, or do you go crazy?
Traditional. Thanksgiving is my favorite, yeah.
Yeah, we don't have anything weird. I mean,
turkey or ham, dressing.
Turkey. We normally do turkey and then ham at Christmas.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
Okay. Isn't it funny how dressing
way, yeah.
or stuffing, whatever you want to call it, is it ever eaten at any other time of the year besides Thanksgiving and Christmas?
Okay, so here's the thing that we do. We decided about a decade or so ago now, it was sometime in the middle of summer, and I'm like, golly, you know what sounds good, man? I think some turkey and dressing sounds good. And I was like, dang, it sure is sad that it's several months away before I can have turkey and dressing. And then that sort of record needle scratch thing, and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm an adult. And they sell those ingredients year round. And so every year since then, we've been doing something we call Half Thanksgiving.
Oh, cool.
And so sometime in July, we'll get together with people. Of course, we didn't do it this year because not in the same way anyway, but we make the meal, just a smaller version of it, you know. And then somebody said, well, it's not July is not halfway to Thanksgiving. I go, no, it's the first half of the meal. I'll complete the meal in
But that's
November.
really funny though, because it is my favorite meal. Turkey and dressing is my favorite meal. And my birthday's in July, so every once in a while, my mom will do turkey and dressing and I'm like,
awesome.
Yes. So that's kind of
both
funny.
in July. There's probably Walmart's going, why are we selling cranberry sauce in July? We're out. We only had 3 cans.
Yeah, but she does the scaled down version like you guys do. But yeah, that's funny.
But in a normal non-COVID year, we've spread that to like multiple families. Like we turned the Half Thanksgiving into a bigger, almost a community event.
This year we're spreading something else.
Yeah, this year we just didn't do any of that. So,
all right. Well, hey, great podcast, and we'll see you. Thanks for joining us. Goodbye.